Jim and Bill, It's Another Day podcast has been on the air just over 3 years. We started our 4th year in December. Some people have asked, how many people do you think you reach? Well, here's what Variety said.
Variety reported that the podcast had reached 427 million downloads.
427 million downloads. Oh, and by the way, that figure was globally and for the year ending in 2024. I wonder where we are now. For those who found us and made us a part of your day, thank you.
Progress.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Friday. Are you ready for the weekend?
I'm always ready for the weekend. Weekends are made for me.
Oh, they are.
They are
I'm glad
indeed.
well, I knew they were made for somebody.
Yes.
For thee, not for moi.
Hey, you know what
That's the way it goes.
I wanted to bring something out. I think we should start the program off with maybe one of the most important stories out there. A lot of people may have missed this one, Bill, but the left has outdone itself again. Oregon's health authority, the state agency responsible for shaping mental health policies, has welcomed a new advisory board member who identifies as a turtle. That's right. He identifies not as a he or a she, but a turtle. As a matter of fact, this is the guy introducing himself. He does it 3 times. Listen.
All right.
If I can play it for you.
JD, I use they, them, or turtle for pronouns. Hello, everybody. It's JD, they, them, and turtle for pronouns in the Springfield, Eugene area.
He's a turtle. So when you introduce him, I guess how would you say that? Mr. Turtle, you're next on the agenda. Mr. Turtle, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
Get out the old cartoon of Mr. Wizard. And the turtle that would always come in wanting to be something, and Mr. Wizard say, I don't think you ought to do it. And he'd put him into that situation, and then he would go, Mr. Wizard, get me out of here. And the turtle would go flying away in a little cyclone. Is he a snapping turtle?
I think of the one that, was it the fast rabbit and the slow...
The tortoise and the hare.
Tortoise and the hare, yeah. And it would kind of walk along like this. Which actually kind of looks like that guy if you look at him online. Maybe he thought this was clever. He'll stand out in the crowd,
Every kid has had a turtle, and then they get rid of the turtle because turtles are filthy and they stink.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, how do you clean yourself when you have a shell on your back?
Well, I don't know. I mean, ask this guy. He would know, I think.
Well,
maybe not.
Well, anyway, I just thought we'd start the program off with a very important story. Lots of stuff going on in the real news. A mob stormed Trump Tower in New York.
Really?
Yesterday, yeah. And seriously, they literally took over the atrium of the place. And because even though it's open to the public, it's private property, so it forced the New York City Police to go in there and to arrest them, and they did, but they all had the same printed shirts on, all of them, and they looked like they were trained to do what they were doing. This is all planned, folks. This is staged. There's money behind this. You'll probably find that these people were bussed into the city to do this. This is their hobby, their job, and they get a check for doing this. And they probably go to different cities, the same group of people, And I should play a little bit. This is a report on MSNBC.
We're being told they are now making arrests here. We were bringing this to you live. People have stormed into Trump Tower protesting the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University former graduate student, who has riled up so much of the anti-Semitism that we've seen, not just on Columbia, but other campuses as well. There's a big dispute going on right now between the Trump administration and Democrats and these supporters of Khalil's who say he has been unfairly detained. But what we're hearing from the administration is Khalil has been at the nexus of this anti-Semitism and the violent protests we've seen on some of these college campuses. You can think about the one building they took over at Columbia months ago and detained. They actually held a janitor hostage. We see the arrest now here at Trump Tower. Can we hear what they're chanting? We don't have the audio, but you can see them getting loud and you can see the police finally moving in. And one of the things I think that we need to note here is you can see we mentioned before that there were police in the corners. Now we see more police show up, overwhelming force. Let's listen in and see if we can hear what they're chanting.
I'm just, you kind of get the idea of what's going on there. It's a little, it's a crowd of people causing civil disobedience and getting arrested. And
I think they're paid protesters, and they didn't get the script in time to memorize it because they didn't sound like they were in sync with what they were saying.
No,
and
I did not hear a hey, hey, ho, ho.
Hee-haw.
So-and-so has got to go or something. I didn't, that's one of their standard chants,
Yeah, no, but they needed numbers. They needed numbers, so they did what they did for Kamala rallies. They bust in people.
Yeah, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted a video from showing that crowd, and she commented, she said, she concluded her tweet with a popular acronym used to warn far-left protesters that they're not dealing with the woke clowns and the DOJ anymore. In quotation marks, she wrote FAFO. End quote.
Don't we have that on a coffee?
Yeah, we do. To put it nicely, okay, fool around and find out, but the fool,
F around and find out.
You can imagine it's a little more succinct. The word they are really using. So we have a lady in Congress. She's been there forever, Maxine Waters.
She's calling for civil war.
That's exactly what she's calling for.
Yes.
86 years old. Listen.
What does Trump expect? Oh, I believe he expects violence. I believe he expects confrontation. I believe he's working toward a civil war.
This lady is 86 years old. She is, first of all, she better hope that there is no civil war. At 86, she has a hard time getting down the stairs. But she is a rabble-rouser. She is, the lady, I'm sorry, folks, there's no other way of putting it. The lady's nuts. She's been a troublemaker in the first term. She was the one who was down there trying to get people to don't let the Republicans get comfortable, even if they're in a restaurant, go in there and ruin their dinner. I mean, she is a rabble-rouser, a troublemaker, and I'm amazed she's still in Congress. Go ahead, Bill.
And we're the party accused of an insurrection, which was not an insurrection. And there's even now evidence showing that the FBI was covering up the fact that they brought in a bomb for this thing. Yeah. They are the ones that was instigated, but you'll never hear the mainstream news, even though there's evidence and it's there. Oh, we can't report that. That would point the finger at ourselves,
I know we've only had our administration in place now for like 50 days plus, 50 days and change, maybe 54, 55 days. But you would have thought that by now we'd start seeing some hardcore results. Like I'm talking about. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very pleased with what President Trump is doing. I think what he's doing with these peace talks is amazing. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But I would have thought that we would have had the Epstein file released to us already. We would have known what happened with the JFK situation. It would be out by now. We would know what happened to RFK. Those things would be out,
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
How big is the government? We say the deep state, but when you talk about all the bureaucracies in every level of the government, and it's deep in people,
Right.
personnel. And even though you hear the big numbers, Trump is laying off 3,000 people here and 3,000
Yeah.
there. Back in 1995, I remember when when I was first involved with any kind of political, programming, the government employed, if you really take a hard look at things,
Yeah.
50% of the American population, believe it or not, works for the government. It is the biggest employer in the United States. So rooting that out and rooting out the evil is damn near impossible. So if you think that the left is weak, I beg to argue with you, because you sit there, you're now hearing of hits taken out on key conservatives. Their homes have been ordered to be swatted, and the family members of conservatives. We are being targeted. So even though we're cutting off the head of the snake, we got a lot of Medusas and Maxine Waters out there.
Well,
with a lot of heads to that snake.
we have a situation where it's only going. I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. We have judges who are openly being lawfare judges, openly trying to cause problems with this administration. They're running interference. Okay, every time something happens that looks like it's going to be a positive change, someone brings it to a favorable judge, and that judge just messes things up. For example, a judge blasted the Trump administration and said he felt misled by the U.S. government. This is the judge, quote, misled by the U.S. government, end quote, as he ordered 6 federal agencies to offer reinstatement to fired probationary workers. Now, let me just say this. Probationary workers in the private sector are absolutely at-will employees, meaning they can be terminated for any cause, for any reason, in the first probationary period length of time. Usually, in a lot of business, it's 90 days. You get in there, you get the money, you get your check, and they kind of get a chance to look at you and see how you're doing, and if you fit into the organization, if you're doing the job like you said you were going to do it. And if you don't do it, in the first 90 days, they can walk in one day and say, hey, don't come in tomorrow, you're done. And that's happened to a lot of people. But all of a sudden, this judge, I believe he is a Clinton-era judge, he has said, no, you can't do that. You have to rehire those like 20,000 probationary employees. Well, for the first time, the White House has responded to this judge. His name is Alsop, to his order. The response was as such. A single judge is attempting to unconstitutionally seize the power of hiring and firing from the executive branch. The president has the authority to exercise the power of the entire executive branch. Singular district court judges cannot abuse the power of the entire judiciary to thwart the president's agenda, Caroline Leavitt wrote for the president. If a federal district court judge would like executive powers, they can try and run for president themselves. But the point is, we talked about this yesterday, separate but equal branches of government. But if you read a lot of the experts, that's really not exactly true. There is one branch that has a little more power because it's the power of one man, and that's the executive branch. He has a little more power than the legislative and judiciary branch. But all of a sudden, these judges, these obscure, unknown people, are now talking as if they have the power to stop the wheels of government and change the course of government. And this is the constitutional crisis that is developing now. Now, if the Supreme Court were fair and honest, they would come out and they would say, this is wrong. You haven't got the authority to do this, and that's that. But I believe the Supreme Court is compromised too it's not going to be a slam dunk in the Supreme Court. It should be, but as long as you have Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts in there, anything could happen. But I also think this, Bill, we should follow Joe Biden's. I know this is hard. It's hard for me to say. We should follow Joe Biden's lead. When the Supreme Court said you have not got the right legally to cancel college debt, college loans, just cut them. Joe Biden's answer was, how to hell with you. He didn't say that, but he ignored them completely and kept canceling the college loans. And you know what happened? Nothing. So I'm thinking that that should happen. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was going to say, I never thought that a judge has any power unless there has been a proper hearing and trial, and then he orders from the bench based on that. Just to sit there and go, well, I don't agree with what's in the news. There's my order. Sorry, Judge, you didn't have a charge or a trial to make any decision. There was not fair and due process of the law, so shut up, And,
as long as these guys are out there, it's like they're taking turns. It's like whack-a-mole. You know what whack-a-mole is?
Yes, I do.
It's like whack-a-mole. It's like you hit one, another head pops up. I got an order. I'm over here, and I'm over here. It's like...
Yeah, but they don't mean anything because, again, it is not fair and due process of the law. If somebody goes, Jim, I'm sorry, but you violated my rights. They get an attorney. They file charges. You go to court, and you both air your side of it, and then the judge renders a decision. A lot of times there's a jury involved, but a judge renders it. Mm-hmm. But it's got to be a proper procedure. These guys... going, I don't like what Trump had to say. Yeah, you got to rehire him because I'm the judge.
Yeah,
I'm the judge. You an idiot, judge. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. This is not America. This is not, do justice. It is a sham.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you think that in the Biden or the Obama administration that they fired anybody? That was
yes,
anybody?
They did.
Well, does this not mean that anybody who was probationary in the past who got fired has a case for reinstatement, don't they?
Yes, they do. I think anybody that was fired under, as a matter of fact, I think anybody fired under Obama that was conservative, you should get an attorney now and say, I'm sorry, but because of this, that kind of changes the statute of limitations. I want back pay for all of that and reinstatement, or I want a settlement cash officer, and that goes for the Trump, the people from that administration, and going forward. If we're going to do it, let's just be fair. about it.
Let's be serious about it. Don't just pick on Trump.
Play that game? Yeah, you want to play that game? Let's do it. And everyone's going, that'll cost a lot of money. Well, the Democrats, you started this war, so let's do it. Well, let's do it. The fight is on. I'm going to have to pay for it either way. So you know what? If I could rub the poop in your face, because you've been a bad puppy, then so be it.
Trump did something interesting yesterday, though. He put an executive order together. I don't know whether this is going to stand up, but he's going to try it anyway. If you were going to do what they've been doing, where these judges stick their hands out and interfere, apparently what happens is the complaining group goes to these sympathetic judges, and these sympathetic judges file a ruling. Right, that's what happens. And if the ruling is found to be with no substance, and what happens is it gets thrown out. The people who filed the complaint, there's no penalty for it. But what Trump has said now is, wait a second, if you're going to do this, if you're going to file all these complaints with these sympathetic judges,
some skin in the game.
Exactly, you're going to have to put some money up. You're going to have to pay some court costs. This could be a game changer. People don't realize that, but we're not just talking about a few bucks fees to do for the license or whatever it is to complain. We're talking about if it's tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage that you've caused the government, that'll be your responsibility.
But the left will still do it. You know why? They have your campaign dollars that they'll throw into a legal fund to sit there and fund and file their lawfare. And that shouldn't be right, because if you're putting money out there, but they do, I see the emails. We've got to do this and we got to file these suits. So they are doing it. But, since we're talking about money out there and blue money, Act Blue has got charges pending that they are the biggest money laundering scheme in U.S. history. So they may have some problems.
And Act Blue is, they've been in the news recently. They've been behind a lot of the corruption and the discourse over the last 50 days. They've been almost active from day one, trying to mess up this administration in some way.
Look, if you think that Kamala, during her short, not even 3-month run, what was it?
Right. It was incredibly short.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
hardly long enough for her to have a drink. It was
really. And I mean, for her not to be able to screw the cap off of her, Mad Dog 2020 or her Boone's Farm apple wine, that's pretty amazing, because they raised over $1 billion for her. Biggest in record. Where'd that money come from?
But her campaign, I hate to say it, ended up being $20 million in debt. They had over $1 billion, but yet they were $20 million in debt when it was all said and done. I know.
But, the people had some nice shoes, clothes to match, and
cars.
A car.
Yeah, they did indeed. Everybody was happy.
How the hell does that happen?
Well, you know what they did say? They did say that if you were on her campaign and you traveled with her, you stayed in the finest hotels, in the best rooms. You had cars taking you to the places, the venues. It was like, Queen for a day. Everybody lived well. It was not like you were staying at the Hampton Inn. You were staying at the finest hotels.
Sad thing is, she's a drunk, and she's still a contender in 2028.
Oh, yeah, but there's somebody else throwing his hat in the ring, too,
Well, there's
Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. There's Gavin. Well, Gavin, though, he's got problems in California. What is it? His very liberal healthcare system that includes illegal immigrants.
Billions of dollars in debt or something like that?
Like $30 billion in debt. But, Gavin's got the time to... No, not Gavin.
I know.
He's doing a podcast.
That's true. He's busy.
And let me tell you something. If you think a podcast is easy, now, I would say Jim and I can sit there and do a podcast with our eyes closed, but it's taken 3 years to get to that level with a certain degree.
Well, it's hard to see your script with your eyes closed, but that's besides the point.
Look, it's dark in here, but there's a little light right here that shines on my, notepad. Now, I don't print everything out because I keep going through reams of paper, but, I got, a dozen pages of just for today, and I might touch on 3 of them.
I do like a tree a day
Mostly.
with paper. Just I have more paper than you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, well, Jim walks around his house.
Pete Buttigieg, right? He cannot be serious about running for president. I mean, is he so delusional that he thinks he has a shot? Does he really think that there's a massive calling for Pete Buttigieg? His motto is going to be "Make America Gay Again." I guess it's MAGA, isn't it? Come to think of it, But that's.
You shouldn't have said that. Now somebody's going to take that and run with it on the left. There'll be a T-shirt.
You think?
With Buttigieg, he'll be the poster child for MAGA. Make America gay again.
Yes. Well, he's not going to get. He's not going to get a lot of votes in East Palestine, Ohio. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
By the way,
No,
I was
they
watching,
don't like him there.
I was watching an episode of I think it was it was FBI. And this is produced by a leftist producer. I won't say his name, but the theme of the episode. And it was a good episode. It was interesting. They were on a train. It had been hijacked by a group of disgruntled people who that came from a town in Ohio that had a derailment. And they didn't get enough money and funds, and a lot of people got sick, and there were deaths. So they were, the government wasn't doing their job, so they were going to show the government, and they were going to take down the company. They were going to race a train into the rail yard owned by the railroad company that caused the wreck. That was the premise of the story, and But I thought to myself, these people in East Palestine, Ohio, can't get a break. By the way, it was East Palestine, Ohio. That's where the real derailment took place. And in this episode, it was like West Liberty, Ohio. It was such a they didn't do a lot to cover up the similarity, if you know what I mean. It was almost
now where's East Liberty? Is it close by?
No, I don't know where East Liberty, Ohio is. I think it's a fictitious town. Maybe it was East. Maybe it was East Doofus. I don't know. I mean West Doofus, but it was obvious that they were talking about East Palestine. There was a derailment there, and the town is East Palestine.
Oh,
and they were doing something similar. But here's the thing: they made the people in this episode. They made them out to be residents of the town, and they were the nasty, evil villains. Mind you, in the real East Palestine, Ohio, they're heroes, okay? These people are friggin' heroes. They have lived through, it's like getting your town bombed. If you ever saw the plume of garbage and smoke and soot that came out of that derailment over their city, it looked like they dropped a hydrogen bomb on the town. And the water was ruined, and people got sick. People who never got sick got sick. And by the way, I live 55 miles from East Palestine, and my car was covered with soot. You know, you got to wonder, were we breathing that too? Of course we were. Anybody downrange was getting that crap in their lungs. And there was no penalty per se. I mean, they paid a little cleanup money and a drop in the bucket for the railroad. They went on with their lives. You know, in the meantime, these people have to live with this problem for the rest of their life. And there's a lot of these people can't afford to leave their homes, and they can't sell them. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say the name East Liberty, I guess it's not real, but they picked Liberty because it's kind of like, it kind of gives that illusion to these conservative people.
Well,
so they're casting taint and taking a story and twisting the narrative because, again, they're projecting and they're trying to, it's mind control. And if you don't believe that, you've got to look at the psychology of what they're doing and what they're saying. They're planting the seeds of deception. So whoever writes the FBI, whoever produces the FBI, and whatever network airs it, they're complicit in the overthrow of America, because that's really what's going on. To sit there, it's a political statement that red is bad, blue good.
By the way, the people in East Palestine are God-fearing good people who have done nothing wrong to this date. They're the victims, yet in this episode of this TV show, it implied that people like that were the villains.
Well, here's what I think we should do. We should go to East Palestine and go get some water from the lakes or the river there and take it and bottle it, as pure stream water. And it's for Act Blue, to help fund Act Blue. You're helping the Democrats by drinking that water.
Oh, no one will buy it, Bill. If you put bottled in East Palestine, Ohio, in big letters on the bottle, No.
Well, we'll call it Liberty Water.
Ooh, Liberty Water. I like it, Bill. That's a pretty good idea. We could sell that on the website. I like that. Liberty Water.
Yeah. It is especially made for Democrats.
Bottled in East Palestine, Ohio. Proceeds to benefit the people of East Palestine. I like that.
Yeah, just tell them don't buy your own water because and just sell it strictly to Democrats, letting them go. Oh yeah, this will fund your medical bills.
Hey, but you know what else you can find on our website?
You can find Right Side Coffee, even FAFO coffee.
Yes, you can. Right Side and FAFO coffee. You're saying FAFO coffee? Go there. You don't believe us? Go to the website.
It's been there.
Yep. And
been there for quite some time.
It is a delicious coffee. It's a medium blend roast of the finest coffee we could find. Also, we have a medium decaf blend roast. It is tasty. Perfect way to start your day. Perfect cup of coffee. When you wake up in the morning, you don't want something too strong, but yet you don't want a weak cup of coffee, right? You want something that's kind of middle of the road, going to get you up, make you feel good. This is that cup of coffee. It's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's available on our website, which is the easiest way to do it, we figure, is just go to it'sanotherday.com. It'sanotherday.com, and you'll see the bag of coffee. Click on the bag of coffee; it'll take you right to it.
Yeah, it's down there at the bottom. Just scrolls along. We got shirts, we got cups. Again, I do ask you to please take a look, and if you see something you like, buy it. We don't get much profit out of it, but what we are doing, that's how we fund our show. We do not sit there and go, yeah, become a member and support us through donations. We don't do that. We give you something for your money, and we don't get very much of it, just to be honest. And that's our only fundraising thing.
We don't take a salary. I'm sorry. Well, I don't take a salary. Do you take a salary? No, we don't take a salary.
Quiet.
And we do this because, well, we kind of believe in the message. In this, we like the idea that we have an opportunity to get what we think is honest, truthful news out to you. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this. This is our 4th year, folks. Can you believe that? 4 years. It keeps us off the streets, It keeps.
That's true.
It keeps Juan Jose and the border crossers off the streets.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wake up to the greatest cup of coffee that money can buy. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. Good news out of Russia yesterday. Did you hear about this, Bill?
They're going for the ceasefire.
Yeah. He said they want it to be a long-term. They want a long-term ceasefire. They don't want one of these short things. They want it to be one that lasts, one that sticks.
They've lost a lot of people, but they will win by attrition. The fact that they have more people than the Ukraine. But it's time for the bloodshed to end. And this was a stupid war to begin with, but I'm thinking that, it's the Ukraine now. It rests on their shoulders, and they're going to show their true colors. Zelensky doesn't want peace. He finds an excuse at every turn of the corner. What's his excuse going to be?
I think he loses power. If he finds peace, he's done. Meaning he'll be out of office. They'll have to have elections. He'll be out of power because one of the recent polls within the last 2 months is he's got like a 4% approval rating in Ukraine. So, God bless those people. They've tried desperately to save their country. They've put their heart, soul, and their blood behind the effort. And I don't know whether I get the impression, Bill, that they're willing to work a deal where each side gives up something. That's going to be the hard part. What they give up and what they can accept. I hope, for the sake of human life, like President Trump, I hope to God that they can come to a settlement and they can stop the bloodshed, and this country can start to heal again. They say it's a beautiful country. They say they have a lot of wheat and really good resources over there. I kind of think that a lot of their fields have been destroyed from the shelling and the bombing and the tanks.
There was a lot of history there in the buildings, and they're gone.
Yeah,
they are gone. It's not like the church in France where I guess you could reconstruct, but you're talking a boatload of buildings that had historic value in sculpture and art to them, and they're gone.
During World War II, there were really amazing bombings in cities like Dresden and stuff, and they were the cities were destroyed. But a lot of the buildings that were historic eventually got rebuilt pretty close to what they looked like. Old churches that were shells. You look at pictures today, and somewhere along the line, the people, they invested in rehabilitating them, saving what they can. So
I know when I was in Berlin, there was I forget what it was, a church with a clock tower or whatever.
Yeah.
But the building was still there. Parts of it, were made accessible and, redone on the ground floor. Yeah. But they left it there, and it looked cool. It was like a monument to the past.
Yeah.
As a reminder.
Don't do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, because I spent a month there one time, and it was interesting going around there.
Yeah. Well, our prayers are with the people of both countries, actually. I think that we want to see this war end, like President Trump has said, peace and maybe the bloodshed stopping. We can only hope. And I know Putin thanked President Trump for, quote, paying attention to the Ukraine settlement, end quote, which I thought was interesting. I got the feeling that, and I think Trump feels this way too, that he can be friendly to both sides.
Oh, I think he can. I mean, you got to keep your enemies close. And, we've been close to Russia before. Hillary was close to Russia. Bill Clinton was
what did she
close
have
to
that
Russia.
Reset button? Remember she had that plastic reset button? She held it up to Lavrov, and Lavrov looked at it and said, it's misspelled. The lettering on the button was wrong.
It's funny about Hillary because she's called people xenophobes, homophobes, Nazis, and all of this stuff. And I'm going like, gee, Hillary, by you just calling people names, it makes you the very person that you're calling other people out to be. You're guilty of it, too.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. And unfortunately, there are people like that. And he has lifted them up. He has given voice to their websites that used to only have 11,000 people, now have 11 million. He tweets and retweets their offensive, hateful, mean-spirited rhetoric.
Yeah, well, that's Hillary Clinton for you. Huh? Racist, sexist. But they like calling us names. They really do. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, Chuck Chuckle Schumer, in one of his lighthearted moments, called all of the people on the right bastards. Listen.
To have the conflict on the best ground we have summed up in a sentence that they're making the middle class pay for tax cuts for billionaires, it's much, much better not to be in the middle of a shutdown, which to divert people from the number one issue we have against these bastards, these people, which is not only all these cuts, but they're ruining democracy.
He did that intentionally. Don't think for 1 second that he stumbled into that accidentally. He meant to call us what he called us. He's that kind of guy. Should we talk about what just happened, Bill?
Yeah, during that audio piece.
Well, people, you won't hear it because we've cleaned it up. It'll sound like one continuous program, but something just happened that was really interesting while we were playing that Hillary tape. The internet went down. Our internet went down.
The connection was severed. Now, you've heard reports that the X is under attack and the IPs are coming from the Ukraine. Now, I have a computer in the other room that I rerouted to a different server system that seems to be working. I was having problems like that. And no, they weren't going, let's go target Bill Knight, in Sandusky, Ohio, or anything like that. Let's go ahead and just target things in general. And that gets back to an old point I made that I love the internet, and that allows us to do what we're doing. But it shouldn't be our end all in communications. We need to sit there and be able to have land-based terrestrial radio stations, which we're giving away and shutting down. We need those individually running.
There's a big station in New York. For people who aren't really into broadcasting, WABC in New York has been historically a big station, a big rock station back in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. And then it went to talk. It has a new ownership. John Catsimatidis, who owns a chain of grocery stores in that area, very wealthy guy, owns WABC. And he took out a full-page ad. And in that full-page ad, it was amazing. He makes the case that people should realize the importance of AM radio and don't throw it away. And I guess there are car companies that are considering dropping AM from the car radio. So it'll just be FM, and then you'll have your internet connection. That'll be it. And AM radio will disappear. And he's saying we have got to call our representatives and our senators and say, enough is enough. We need AM radio to exist. It has to be there. Tell us, and you can, Bill, you can probably add to this story.
Sure, I can. Well, first off, AM radio in its pure natural form, you can have 100 watts and go for hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of miles. Now, you might go, well, yeah, but there's static and interference. Well, that's because AM didn't have the luxury of lobbyists to sit there and prevent things that interfere with the signal that, quite honestly, are illegal to interfere with the signals, but there was nobody there to fight for its cause, and they can be filtered easily. And one of the things, and I mentioned it before, if you were an invading country, the first thing you wanted to do, and before there was radio, you'd go take out the newspaper sources so that there was no communication and warning to the public. But now you had just a massive growth of radio, AM radio, and yes, FM too, and TV. But they were individually owned or by a group and individually run, so they were cell sites. And you've got 50,000 of these cell sites all over America that covers America and beyond, and you had the power of the spoken live word. If there was a natural disaster, we were there to help and direct you to safety. If we were under attack, like maybe in World War II, all of a sudden the live reporters came on and said, Pearl Harbor has been bombed, and we are now at war. You wouldn't know that today if we went to war.
You could listen to English Radio Britain, in Europe because of high-powered AM transmitters that reached the European countries. They were able to talk to their people. But imagine for a second what just happened to us. We were in the middle of our show, halfway through our show, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we disappeared. The connection was disconnected. We were done. Imagine that happens to everybody in the country. All of a sudden, all of us would be in the dark. Everybody would be left wondering what the hell's going on, what's happening. And if without things like AM radio, we'll never know. We need AM radio to exist to keep our country healthy and alive and connected. Because even the kids who don't use AM radio now, believe me, if they lose the internet, they're going to want to know what's going on. They'll be looking for those AM radios.
Yeah, and if you're sitting there going, well, AM quality and fidelity, actually, it does have the quality and fidelity all the way up to the same thing as FM, but to allow and squeeze more stations in there, they cut down on the bandwidth that you could modulate it. But either way, that's here nor there. AM can go a long way. I found out as a kid, somebody had an old floor Philco radio, and they said, hey, it's great radio, looks good, turns on, but I can't pick up squat. And I grew up in Fresno, California. And they said, well, electronics. I didn't really know that much, but I went and looked at it, and I said, well, maybe I'll just do the tuning capacitor. And all of a sudden, 5 o'clock, Fresno, California, way out on the West Coast, in the San Joaquin Valley, you got mountains around you. In comes WLS out of Chicago, which was great for, a 16-year-old kid like me, because I'm going, that was the place you wanted to be, and to hear that station so far away.
There are hobbyists who do nothing other than DX. DXing is their hobby is to find distant stations, and they send out cards and ask the chief engineer to sign
QSL.
Yeah, and they sign their their name and where they are, and maybe they'll put a little description of what they were hearing when they found the station. But the thing is this: we do need AM radio to exist. We can't let it go by the wayside. And even if it means that we have to subsidize some of these AM stations if they're not making money, if you want to keep our country connected, we need technology like that, AM radio.
It seems so archaic, but it's so simple and important, And, I would recommend, they've loosened up the regulations. You can go online, get the test, do it. get a what is a ham license. So at least you have communication, because just because Trump is for peace, he's not going to be in office forever. There is a cabal out there that wants control, and they love war. And even with Trump in office, even though he wants peace, we could be at war. As a matter of fact, which you may not know, he's asking now for the military to lay out a plan to take back the Panama Canal.
Yeah, I have the story right here, Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says here, President Trump reportedly moving towards plans to retake the Panama Canal. According to officials who spoke with NBC News, Trump asked military leaders to, quote, draw up options, end quotes, for a plan that would either see the U.S. partnering more closely with Panamanian security forces or potentially taking the canal back by force. Woo-hoo.
And there's a lot of people that don't want us to get that canal back. Carter made a mistake, but he did do one thing. He put a poison pill in there that set some ground rules that we can take it back.
Right.
And so Trump is right about it. And strategically, it is a lifeline for us. And we can't keep throwing away these lifelines. And it is a fightable, determining point for us there. Greenland's in play now, and there are people out there that
he had Trump.
They voted in favor of us.
Trump had the head of NATO. I think his name is Ruta. He had him in town yesterday, and Ruta, he was sitting in the Oval Office next to Trump, and Trump doesn't pull any punches, or he doesn't hide his feelings from anybody. He talked about, while the guy was sitting there, he's talking about how it'll be good if we get Greenland. It'll be good for NATO, too, because it's a strategically significant location, and it would help enhance the strength of NATO, too. But we can do it without NATO. I mean, he doesn't pull any punches. It's like one thing about Trump, he is open. Whether you like it or not, you get information from Trump. Hey, I'm looking at the clock. I wanted to do this today as opposed to tomorrow. There's a new documentary film that is coming out called Age of Disclosure.
Yes.
It's getting a lot of notice because it's making the claim that UFOs are real and that aliens are on planet Earth living right now amongst us. I'm going to play the audio from the preview. And you're going to hear a lot of familiar voices like Marco Rubio and Tim Burchett and Luis Elizondo, who was the former one of the investigators who worked for the government, the CIA, on UFOs. I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to play an interview with Alejandro. We've played it before, but it's important to hear it. This is something which apparently a lot of people are saying is true. Listen.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species. We are absolutely not alone.
Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real. They're here, and they're not human. I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I worked on highly classified UAP programs.
28 years as an astrophysicist.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
The one-star admiral after 32 years of service.
People that come forward with this, I feel like they've taken their life in their own hands.
I was recruited to a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomena.
For over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
It's hallucinating. There's a whole fleet of them.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come.
China has established its own version of a UAP task force.
You think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
This is similar to the Manhattan Project.
This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
This is so secret. Very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis. But that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species.
It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
That's another reason why you should keep AM radio.
I was just going to say, there is another reason to do that, because if something were to go on, we're reliant on the internet, and one little spike that can go through there will take down computers everywhere. It's a web of computers.
And people may say, well, why doesn't it affect AM radio? Well, most AM radio stations have generators. Most AM radio stations can get back on the air independently. Even if there's, let's say there's an electronic pulse and it messes up stations in New York.
EMP.
Yeah, well, maybe it won't affect the people or the stations in Chicago. I'm just saying. Maybe, there's always going to be an alternative if you have independent AM radio out there.
And an EMP is shielded. You shield your equipment with a Faraday cage, and that can be in your garage. Okay, an EMP goes off, a nuclear blast goes off, your car won't start. The electronics are fried unless you do something kind of ingenious. Go get some chain link fence and just have that go. The walls, the roof, everything around and grounded. It takes that electromagnetic pulse, goes into that fence and takes it and grounds it, and it doesn't go through to hit your electronics.
The other thing they suggest is if you have a cell phone, wrap it in aluminum foil. Completely surround it with aluminum foil. And
Take
that
a
will
walkie-talkie, take a walkie-talkie, a radio, a flashlight, and a burner phone. Put it in a shoebox and take that shoebox and wrap it in foil so the lid's covered and the box is covered.
Yep.
It's a Faraday safety box. And if a war happened, you would be able to go there. You'd have a flashlight that works. You'd have a radio that works. You'd have a walkie-talkie. You would have
cell phone, even if they get some
cell phone there.
Yeah. By the way,
you would have ways of communication.
Some cell towers are putting Faraday cages around the equipment. I'm just saying, they know to do it. So I want to play this next thing. It's you heard in that preview a segment with Luis Alejandro. He was he's involved with the whole UFO thing right now, but he worked for the government, and he was deeply involved with the government investigation into UFOs, and I guess they believe they're real, and he was sworn to top secret secrecy. He couldn't talk about it to anybody, but apparently that's been lifted, or he's been out of the government for a long enough period of time where it doesn't apply anymore, and he is talking. I want to play this for you. This is a guy who worked for the U.S. government.
We'll now recognize Mr. Elizondo for his opening statement.
Greetings, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, ranking members Connolly and Garcia, and members of the committee. It is my honor and privilege to testify before you on the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, formerly known as UFOs. On behalf of our brave men and women in uniform and across the intelligence community, as well as my fellow Americans who have awaited this day, thank you for your leadership on this important matter. Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and the National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first. With that said, I also understand the consequences of excessive secrecy and stovepiping. Nowhere was this more apparent than in the aftermath of 9/11, which many of us remember all too well. I believe that America's greatness depends on three elements. A watchful Congress, B, a responsive executive branch, and C, an informed public. Over the last decade and a half, I learned that certain UAP programs were and are operating without any of these elements. Although much of my government work on the UAP subject still remains classified, excessive secrecy has led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives. This is not hyperbole, but a genuine fact, and this is wrong. To fix these problems, I propose three principal actions. First, Congress and the President should create a single point of contact responsible for a whole-of-government approach to the UAP issue. Currently, the White House, CIA, NASA, the Pentagon, Department of Energy, and others play a role, but no one seems to be in charge, leading to unchecked power and corruption. Second, we need a national UAP strategy that will promote transparency and help restore the American public's trust at a time when the public's trust is at an all-time low. This strategy should include a whole-of-government approach, including the academic and scientific communities, the private sector, and our international partners and allies. Third, Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection, and for those who refuse to cooperate, it is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to wield their subpoena power against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. In closing, we as Americans have never been afraid of a challenge. In fact, we thrive on them, whether it's eradicating polio or going to the moon. We don't run from a challenge, we take it head on. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency. And this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we as Americans have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. Together, we can usher in a new era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth. Thank you, esteemed members of Congress, for your time today. It is profoundly appreciated by many.
Luis Elizondo, and a part of the government. He spent years investigating UFOs. I was thinking as that was running, everything that's going on right now is showing the dirty underbelly of our government right now. I mean, and I think it's all connected in some way. I mean, we're not being told the truth about the possibility of UFOs, whether they've existed. That's been going on since 1947, at least, since Roswell. And we're not being. I just want to make the connection here. They're also not being straight about the assassination attempts on Trump, on the assassination of Kennedy, the assassination of RFK or Martin Luther King. They all were fiction. They were fiction, and we were told a lot of lies. It's all connected, and you have to ask yourself, And then now you have this interference with the Trump administration, with these district judges. It's all about money. It's all about the deep state controlling us. Controlling us. You may not say, oh, how is the UFO thing connected to... no, it's all a matter of manipulation. We are not being told the truth about anything. And when,
well, how do you...
I was going to say, Bill, then Trump comes along, and he's an open book, and they're trying to close that book. Go ahead.
You know, well, his family has got a history in Tesla and different things like that. And he's a very smart person, and his children are very smart. And,
I think I told you, his uncle, John Trump, was a distinguished professor at MIT. He was also in the government. And when Tesla died, when he died in 1940, he was living in the New Yorker hotel, and all of his records were in that building, in the basement, in a vault in the basement. And the FBI sent over a team that included John Trump. And Trump understood the documents. See, that was the thing. Trump could look at the scientific documents and say, this is really important stuff. We need to keep this. And I guess a lot of those documents were squirreled away and taken to Washington, where they are to this day.
Yeah. Here's a strange thought for you. You know, we're talking about Greenland and the strategic importance of it for the United States. But we were just talking about UFOs. So maybe this is, getting deep in the woods here, but maybe in a universal sense, all right, we accept that there's other life out there. Planet Earth is of universal importance to some kind of race somewhere else. And maybe, they're actually seated and working with, maybe the deep state.
Well, there's the theory that they're putting out there today is that, and that this new movie, Age of Disclosure, says this, is that these people who are from outer space walk amongst us, which would say to me that
they're observers.
They look like us, which means that they can pass for us, So
how do you know they're not in office?
Well, I was going to say that. How do you know they're not the richest people in the world? How do you know
That's true.
How do you know that they don't? They aren't the geniuses. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
So, have you ever sat there? Have you ever sat there and wondered? All right, how does this person know instinctively, without a specific education, that they can take something and turn it into a success and into wealth and beyond belief? And you sit there and go, okay, what's that formula? And you're going, no, doesn't work for you.
Right.
We end up living and working under the mushroom, but they can do it. I saw an interview with Trump, and I'm not picking on Trump. I think he's a good guy, smart guy, but let's just take this thought. At one point in time, he was negative $900 million. And this is before Melania, and he was walking along with a date, and he sat there and see that bum across the street? She goes, yeah. He's $900 million richer than me. She goes, are you saying that he's got $900 million or he's got more than that? He said, no. Imagine just for a minute, that guy has got no money. Nothing at all. He's got not a cent. He's still $900 million richer than me. And that was a true
do you know
statement.
The difference is? I heard him interviewed. When you are a person who is a success like him, they have this attitude that it's only temporary. Oh, I can get around this. They don't think of it as an end. They think of it as an interruption.
But maybe the war of Armageddon is being fought with mankind from alien beings. There are good people here, and there are bad aliens here. And maybe maybe Trump and his family, which seemed, his uncle.
Well,
and Barron seems to be smarter than the other. And
there's supposedly a book, and I've seen it. I've seen pictures of it. I haven't seen the book. There was a book that was published apparently in like 1898, and the lead characters were Barron and his faithful companion Donald.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, I know that sounds crazy, but it was a real book, and
sometimes
it came out.
Fiction becomes reality now, doesn't it?
And the other thing is this: if they walk amongst us, I mean, you're right. These are people who they may already know the future. They may already know the winning lottery numbers. They may already know which is going to be the successful stock, how to invest it. And by the way, I think some of the evil ones, I really believe this, are in Washington. Some of the people that we're fighting against may not be as normal as you may think. Pardon?
There was a TV series. I think it got cut off with
The Twilight Zone.
No. Let me finish here. It got cut off just before COVID, and it never came back. And I think it was called The Traveler. I think they had 3 seasons, and basically what they were is they were almost like time cops or sleuths, but they came back, and they would have so many lives in the present time that they came from the future.
Right.
That was a desolate future. And they figured out how to transport back, but they had certain, tools and powers. And they were here to change the course of mankind. But there were good and bad players. All right?
Sometimes they say, Bill, that movies are more
telling
windows as opposed to fiction. They actually, they're little glimpses into truth. We could talk about this forever.
But it was called The Traveler. I'm pretty sure it was The Traveler. Look it up. It's out there. But it only had 3 or 4 seasons, and I was so mad that it didn't go forward because I was going, this is an interesting concept that we're going back, kind of like the time tunnel. You're going back to look at things, or what was that, Quantum Leap, where you go back and correct things. That time is a string. So...
why is it so important for the truth? They keep the truth from us. Why do they keep the truth from us? Why? I mean, even things like what happened in
can't handle the truth.
Even things that happened in Butler last summer, right? That should be a very cut and dry thing. There were 2 shooters, one on the tower, one on the roof. We got the one on the roof. The one on the tower got away. It was a conspiracy. People aren't going to go bananas. We're interested in knowing the truth, but they have to keep it a secret. They have not even told us what their fiction is yet. They've hinted toward it, but we haven't had a report come out that gives us it. And Trump has said he hasn't got one either. How does a kid who's 20 years old in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, get all the funds and the resources, get the 3 or 4 cell phones, have the 3 different international bank accounts, get the equipment that he needed, all that stuff up to a place that was an hour and 20 minutes from his house?
Yeah.
Set up and then shoot the president. And by the way, how does the president, at the exact moment he did, turn his head precisely at the exact time so they would nick his ear?
I'll cap this off with this because we've got kind of into a Rogan type thing, where we're deep in
That's okay.
in thought and conspiracy. But let's just say, let's take a look at that kid, that the shooter at Trump, and he did the video. Was it before or after? You got the wrong man.
You mean this one?
My name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. I hate Republicans. I hate Trump. And guess what? You got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
The Terminator, the Travelers, you got the Time Tunnel, you got Quantum Leap, shows about people traveling from the future to the past to correct mistakes. Now, you got that book that you talked about from 1898 that talks about Barron and his
H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, The Time Machine. Yeah.
And he's done that. All right, so let's say that there are travelers from the future. All right. Now, my religious friends are going to go, oh, you're nuts, Bill. But let's just say God is an acronym for some superhuman intelligence, a computer, AI. And they're going back to, yeah, I know, I'm doing the little cross thing too.
I'm blessing myself. Yes.
Yeah. But, all right, because I was going with the Trump thing, How did he instinctively know to turn right at that second?
Listen, if you want to get into science fiction, okay, we could be here all day talking about possibilities.
That's another podcast. Somebody wants to pay for it because that one's going to cost some money. Hey, other things in the news that you ought to know about.
Are we leaving that story behind now? Is that what you're saying?
We'll go on. We would be going on for another 2-3 hours until our voices quit.
All right, go ahead.
That's Chuck Schumer called everybody. I
played that.
Republicans. You and I. Yeah,
I played that. Yeah, I played that.
We're bastards.
Yes, I played that cut earlier in the show. Obviously, you had the volume down in the studio where you were.
Well, no, I had a lot of glitches in the internet. So
yes, okay.
But
look, for those of you who didn't hear it,
to have the conflict on the best ground we have summed up in a sentence that they're making the middle class pay for tax cuts for billionaires, it's much, much better not to be in the middle of a shutdown, which to divert people from the number one issue we have against these these people, which is not only all these cuts, but they're ruining democracy.
Yeah, you're ruining democracy, you fathead.
Well, he called everybody a bastard. We didn't talk about the Colorado teen that went in for,
an abortion.
An abortion.
No, we did not talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. She went in for abortion. Got everything done. Apparently, they don't have really good safety protocols or anything. She died.
How did she die?
I don't know, but she died during the abortion. So, you talk about women's rights and the safety, and, I'm talking about the child, too. The child has a right. But which tells you that narrative that they're selling, they don't care about the child, and they don't care about you with all your rights. And there's a case and a point, and, I know nobody's talking about it. It happened yesterday, I guess afternoon, an American Airlines that was in Denver, gate C38. Now, when I first heard it, they said it was an in-flight emergency, but apparently it was at the gate.
Yeah.
The plane just burst. There was smoke, and it burst into flames. What the hell's happening?
Do you see the picture? The picture had like a bunch of the passengers were standing out on the wing.
Yeah, because they had to open that emergency door, and because obviously the cabin was filled with toxic fumes. And,
yeah, exactly.
And, the engines were on fire. The plane was on fire. What the hell? Because this is not Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen. And this is something that is, going on. It just seems.
It was a Boeing. I hate to say it. It was a Boeing 737 MAX or one of those, new Boeing airplanes. And they have an issue. Boeing was a big DEI company for the longest time, and they were proudly bragging about it. They were hiring DEI over qualified people. I think it's coming back to bite him in the gluteus maximus,
Yeah, I know I had it in my notes from yesterday. There was a guy that was, called out for the fact that he cheated. He helped people cheat on their test to get into, I think, air traffic control and whatnot.
Yeah.
So when they took a test,
I saw that.
You've got it. I got all the answers right here. You got it. So you can, you can be, all you can be. It's not that hard of a job, but here's the test.
Yeah.
You need to study for this to know exactly what the hell it is you're supposed to do up in that tower. But now, I would call into play anybody that he worked with to say, you know what, you got to be retested. We'll give you a little bit of time to study, but not much, because you should know this stuff. So I thought that was...
Hey, another interesting story yesterday, in case you hadn't heard, all day yesterday, Chuck Schumer was telling us how he was going to shut down the government.
Not anymore.
They were going to close down the government. There were going to be people hanging around D.C. all weekend because there'd be no budget agreement. But at the last minute, they agreed to the continuing resolution. Apparently because there were people on his side, including Senator Christian Gillibrand from New York, who was screaming in a closed room about how it was going to make the Democrats look like the villains. So Schumer apparently caved, and they voted for the continuing resolutions like the Republicans wanted them to do, and that's behind us now. They're having the Dems are having a bad time right now because they haven't sat down. They talk about they have these retreats like they had over the past couple of days where they go away and talk about where they're going to go. Somebody's got to sit them down and say, okay, folks, all of you guys take a deep breath. Everything we've talked about in the past, we're not talking about it anymore. We're not going to get into arguments about transgenders and LGBTQs, and we're going to start talking about issues that relate to the American family. We're going to talk about making lives better for the people in their homes, get the cost of living under control so eggs are reasonable again. The things that Trump is doing, but they have to make it theirs. You know what I'm saying?
They got to steal the thunder.
Yeah, and right now, it ain't happening. By the way, and it's not happening because you have people like Chuck Schumer and AOC running the show.
But I think at these retreats, too, they plan on how to sabotage and turn things upside down and, cause distractions and mayhem out there because they want to do that and cast the shadow on Trump. I don't think that there's really, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I don't think there's anything they can do that people are going to believe anymore because this playbook just seems to be a regurgitation of the same old playbook.
Well, Bill Ackerman was an investor, a backer of the Democrats, and this is a guy, I guess he's a billionaire and a wealthy guy, and he was asked about the Democrats and where they are and what he thought. Listen.
In terms of managing, where do the Democrats go from here? They really put themselves in a hole.
Democratic Party needs a complete reboot. The problem is that leadership and people in power generally don't like to give up power. But this is a case where a lot of people need to resign in disgrace. Party needs a complete reboot. They continue to double down on all of the mistakes and policies that were made before. If I remember the Democratic Party, the leadership, I would be saying, we love this effort to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. DOGE is great. We just want to make sure there's some checks and balances. Please keep us informed, as opposed to marching and opposing and telling staff members not to respond to emails, stuff like that. That's just sort of one of many. I don't think of myself ever as really as a member of a party. I don't think of myself as a member of the Republican Party. I have had to check a box in order to vote in New York City on occasion. But, I've always been kind of a centrist. I like to vote for people I think are the best candidates, regardless of political affiliation. But Democratic Party has not done itself a service in the last 4 years and probably longer than that.
Well, he's right. And the problem is, they don't like to relinquish power. So, if it were a private business, folks, if the Democratic Party was a corporation, there would be a widespread management change, a restructuring of the business, and I think rethinking the purpose of the business. These guys here, they just won't let go.
Well, I mean, it is maybe a corporation or a business, but you got the wrong people at the head of it, and they don't realize they're the problem.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. It's going to be an interesting weekend. We kind of did some dabbling into areas today that we usually do on our weekend show. But we
can dabble some more.
I was going to say we'll probably do that tomorrow on our weekend show.
Hey, you know what's going on today? Before we forget,
what?
No, I'm a little confused. Actually,
oh yeah, tonight at 7:05 or something like that. 7:03. Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about talking about the launch?
Yeah. But here's the interesting thing. Yesterday it was scrubbed. All right.
Right.
And so I went and looked, and they said, "Okay, here it is, and it's the blast off. It took off on today, the 14th." And I'm going, what? And I went back and I looked, and there it was. And then all of a sudden, it's not there, and I'm going, Did it launch yesterday?
No.
Or is it tonight at 7:05? And then what was that story doing? And was it an old one? Because they had the guys, in the cockpit going, we're getting weird stories, and sometimes they jump the gun on things.
Sometimes they put stories. They do stories ahead of time, and they just insert the facts here, and here. And it wouldn't surprise me.
It's a template.
Yeah,
it's a template, but they released it.
Yes, if some fathead pressed the wrong button. Here's the thing: it was supposed to happen the day before yesterday,
right?
Like at 7:30, and they had a hydraulic problem with the system on the ground. Okay, it wasn't on the spacecraft; it was on the ground. So they postponed it a day. So last night I tuned in to watch it about 7:28 or 7:27, and I didn't see it. So I checked, and they had postponed it another day just to make sure everything was okay and ready to go. So as it stands right now, it's supposed to go tonight about 7:03. This launch, and I pray to God everything is okay.
Here's what I worry about. Elon's had a great deal of his success with his rockets and his launches. But I'm sitting here going, I hope there's an attack on Elon. How do you know there's not somebody in there, nefarious, maybe an alien among us that's working there and he doesn't know it, and they're doing things to mess with things, because that would be such taint on him.
I should also point out, by the way, that, they say, well, he's lost 2 rockets in a row. Well, understand something. The rockets that have been successful recently, the ones they caught and stuff like that, the ones that came back and landed on the launch pad, those were a certain type of rocket, a smaller rocket that is incredibly reliable, and they feel very confident it'll work as planned. The ones that blew up were like twice the size physically of the reliable rockets. Those rockets are being prepared for long distance travel, like Mars. Exactly.
And they're testing right now. And when you do a test on something, you are prepared to see it fail. The launch vehicle, when NASA launches a rocket, the launch vehicle, then it burns out and goes off into the ocean. It's done. It's over. Musk will sit there and take off, get through the stratosphere and let the capsule take off.
Right.
And then it turns around and comes back, it fires up its rockets, it lines up, it comes down really fast. You're going, well, this is going to be messy. And all of a sudden, the little landing struts come down like an old-time movie, and the son of a gun just sits there and lands, and the arm comes out and pulls it right and come back to mama.
Yeah.
Here you go. And
exactly.
they can reuse that.
Yeah.
So it is that long-distance rocket where they're having the problem, and they've got to get the ratios down, the fuel around, the thrusting down. It's got to go a long time. So I'm sure that the engineering in that is far different than going to the moon.
Yeah. So be patient, but the ones that he's having problems with right now are his newest, biggest rockets. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that in the not-too-distant future, he's going to have that down. They asked him about it. He said, it's okay. We'll straighten it out. Yeah. It's like, don't panic. Everything's okay. It's under control. And I think that they're going to have success tonight. I pray to God they do. I hope there's no creep out there like you've said there might be, By the way, speaking of creep, did you see this guy, a 20-year-old illegal from Guatemala? He beat his little 2-month-old daughter to death because he wasn't sure whether it was his biological child. So his answer, this punk, his name is Marlon Predizin. Robalis Predizin from Guatemala, he killed his daughter. And this is the kind of guy that Joe Biden allowed into our country when he had open borders like he did. Inexcusable. Just terrible stuff.
Children are precious. They are a gift, no matter who the father or the mother is.
Absolutely.
You remember that. So if you walk into a relationship and there's a child there, you go, well, it's not my child. Well, actually, you can walk in and raise that child. It doesn't matter who the birthing mom or dad is, who donated the sperm. What it's the role that you assume and take, and the responsibilities that you take upon you.
Yeah, if there
and
are,
love that child like it's your own.
If there are levels of hell, this guy is going to go to the lowest and the hottest for doing what he did to a 2-month-old child. Awful
Bottom
stuff.
floor, sir. Down you go.
You know, we talked about that spaceship. I wonder if they have Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee on that. They really should take it with them because it's out of this world. It's out of this world, Bill.
It really is good stuff. It's
Yeah.
orbital. You should get it because you'll blast off and go into orbit
You
as
will.
soon as you have your first sip from the cup.
Oh.
It's great stuff.
It really is. And
It's the right stuff.
You can get it at our website, our main website. Just go to itsanotherday.com, itsanotherday.com, and you'll see it pop up. When you see the picture of the bag, click on the bag, and it takes you right to the order place, and you can have your coffee before you know it. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's delicious.
Very, 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 very good coffee.
Yes.
Buy some and drink it today.
You know, it might be the perfect coffee to bring conservatives and liberals together, you know.
Oh, really? Because you will, look, if you're a lefty, drink the coffee, and you will be thinking in your right mind.
That's exactly right. You get that? It's exactly right. Anyway, we have Juan and Jose here to take us out of this commercial.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Wake up on the right side to Right Side Coffee. Well, my friend, tomorrow we have our weekend program, our update.
Yes, we do.
And it's a more relaxed program. Well, this was kind of relaxed, and I think what threw us off today was the interruption from
the internet.
The internet. This was not.
It was.
This has been a strange week, Bill. We lost. You know what happened a few days ago when all of a sudden just my computers shut off in the middle of our show and then came back on again for no reason, almost as if somebody had a switch to my computers. You know,
we'll mess with them.
Yeah, exactly. And
well, that was kind of happening whether somebody's messing with it or just there are internet problems, and you'll see it out there, and it's been going on all this week. There have been a barrage of attacks. Now, a lot of these servers, they know it and they're fighting it, but it slows them down. So if you get a hang up in your computer and get the spinning wheel of death, it's probably not because it's swamped by you and other American consumers. It's being hacked.
Yeah.
And you might want to get off at that time. Say, I'll come back and do this later than pounding your fist on the keyboard, because all you're going to do is open it up for whatever hack that's going on out there, maybe a virus. Just get the hell off the thing and give it a rest.
And speaking of giving it a rest, Bill, I think we should do that with this program. Is there anything you want to say to take us out of here?
Well, I would think it's only right at this moment in time we go, hasta la vista, baby! We're out of here!
This is CRN America.